How are you guys all doing? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast presented by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege, bringing you guys another show to wrap up this week, Easter weekend, coming up to here, the big day in a few days. So, here to wrap up the week with another round of great topics that I want to discuss on today's episode, leading off with both UNC and Washington's Pro Days that happened yesterday. Drake May and Michael Penix throwing at both of those. So a lot of stuff to talk about with them being such highly touted quarterbacks. Later on, the wide receiver market is going to get a bit crazy. There's some pending extensions to be done for Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, coming up on their final years of their deals. Not to mention Brandon Ayuk, as well as a bunch of other wide receivers that need to figure out their situations. So I'm going to talk about that and how it could impact a lot of things with these teams, as well as giving you guys my over-under predictions and picks, really, after BetMGM dropped their win total probabilities for each NFL team. I'm going to be giving you guys my over-under picks on mostly all of the NFL teams. I picked only about a handful, I think about half, that I could only get to in the short amount of time, so that's coming later in the show. A lot of stuff to dive into and get to talk about. But before I dive into the first segment, please remember to always follow, like, and subscribe to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, as well as if you have any questions or listening right now, to please use the tip and donations link at gsmcpodcast.net with any of your questions or comments that you want to make during the live shows. It makes it easy for me to read your question on air, answer it on air, and hopefully have a conversation, make it more engaging. It's a lot more fun for me that way, I think, and it's a big help for the show whenever you guys are able to use the tip and donations link. Again, is gsmcpodcast.net. We thank you guys always greatly every time you guys are able to do that. But that allows me to jump into the first segment, which has to do with the New York Giants and their head coach, Brian Daboll. Not the best season, obviously, for the Giants coming off of last year. It hasn't gotten much better with Saquon leaving, Xavier McKinney out the door now as well. You're kind of looking at all these pieces and not knowing what direction this team is going to go with. But fortunately for them, they have a very steady, very good coach in my opinion. I'm a fan of Brian Daboll. I like the way he goes about coaching this team and leading this team. But one thing he hasn't done over the past couple of seasons is call the plays for the offensive side of the ball, which he's more used to. That's what he knows. That's what he was hired to the New York Giants to come and do, improve this offense and develop their young quarterback, Daniel Jones. Of course, from his time spent in Buffalo as their offensive coordinator, the biggest reason for him getting hired in the New York Giants is the development and how successful Buffalo was with Josh Allen during his time there. In his time there with the Buffalo Bills, he made 3 consecutive playoff appearances, a conference championship game in 2020. He was an offensive coordinator for 8 seasons and spent 4 of them with the Bills. Then he came over to the New York Giants and hasn't been calling the plays for them, which is odd for some coaches, and in some instances, you have some coaches that do call the plays, from Kyle Shanahan, Sean McDermott on the defensive side of the ball. Matt LaFleur calls the plays for Green Bay as well. So you have some players or some coaches in there, I should say, that do call the plays, that do make it a point of emphasis for them to get their ideas out there for their teams. And I thought Daboll did a very good job with Josh Allen. Obviously, you see where Josh Allen is now. And now I think he's starting to realize it as well with his latest comments that he made at the NFL owners meeting a few days ago. He said he was thinking about the possibility of trying to call plays now on offense and how that could be something of interest for him. Their current play caller and offensive coordinator is Mike Kafka, their primary play caller for the last 2 seasons, and he was just promoted to assistant head coach, so kind of more added to his plate. Maybe could have an opening now for Brian Daboll to go up to him and suggest, you might have a couple roles now, maybe let me, not maybe because he is the head coach, he could just go up to him and say that he's going to be calling plays, but it is something now to monitor with Mike Kafka having other responsibilities. He could alleviate the play calling duties to Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll seems to be open to it, seems to have an interest in it. At the owners' meeting, he said, "It's something I'm looking into. I think there are 20 head coaches at this point in time who call plays in the league. I've been doing a bunch of research. No decision has been made. I'm still going through the process, thinking about what we need to do." And it is interesting now because before, when it was reported that Brian Daboll was coming in and he was hired as the new head coach of the New York Giants, it was reported that their general manager, Joe Schoen, preferred that Brian Daboll didn't call the plays. That was a report that's out there. Those are, rumors, I guess you could say, that were out there. But it is interesting because Joe Schoen also came from the Buffalo Bills. And if I'm not mistaken, they did spend time there together. And he would know how prolific he is as an offensive coordinator. Now, if you want to say some of that is mostly due to Josh Allen being that great, making him look better, that could be an argument, but at the same time, Josh Allen didn't come in being this all-world quarterback right from the get-go like some of these other highly touted quarterbacks are. Like C.J. Stroud came in right away and made an impact right away. It wasn't like that for Josh Allen, and I think more people would agree that he had to develop a lot, learn how to use his skill set to the best of his abilities and to benefit the team mostly to get the best version of Josh Allen that we all see now. He's able to change and adapt and manipulate some things that he couldn't do before. That really all started with Brian Daboll. You kind of had the same build with Daniel Jones, which was a topic of conversation before. When Daboll came in, people were looking at Daniel Jones, and you could kind of see the resemblance there with Josh Allen. Not the arm talent or the arm strength, really, but the size, the frame of both of them. They're both very big guys, pretty athletic. Daniel Jones is pretty sneaky athletic for a lot of people that might not know how big he is, and in open field, he is pretty hard to tackle. So similar to Josh Allen, they have those similarities, but obviously the arm talent is there, and you saw some of the glimpses that could be with Brian Daboll and how this team could be exciting when they made the playoffs. They traveled to Minnesota. They beat Minnesota there. It didn't go for them. It didn't go well for them when they faced up against the Eagles, but that one game, it sort of cultivated everything that was supposed to be Brian Daboll, getting the best out of Daniel Jones. They looked great. Obviously, Saquon's there now. Now he's gone. You might have to change that up a little bit, but now you're at a point, you're lacking talent on offense. You still have Daniel Jones, who you have questions over. And Brian Daboll, I think if you're trying to make a decision now, I think it's worth a shot now because, what do you have to lose at this point? If things go really bad, and you have the same season or worse, you're going to be gone anyway. So what's the difference if you're calling plays or you're not calling plays? Or I should say, if you're not calling plays like last year, you wouldn't have the chance to experience something new with you calling plays to see if that changes the outcome in some way. Right now is the best chance to do that because of the connection to Allen and quarterback development. This could be the time, looking at the draft now a little bit, do you go for a younger quarterback? Talking about that development trait, that good relationship Daboll had with a young quarterback and bringing him in and developing him. Do you try to do that now and move on from Daniel Jones and have Daboll try to develop another guy? Because it worked out with Josh Allen, that's something to think about. They have been connected to almost all the quarterbacks, really, that have had their pro days recently. Drake May, Michael Penix is another one. J.J. McCarthy's a big one. They have shown a lot of interest in him in just their visits and meetings that they've had with him in and around their pro day. So that could be a scenario that intrigues the Giants now to try and get something out and create a spark on offense with a new young quarterback coming in is an avenue they could go down. And also, bringing something in could just change the aspect of this team. They're dynamic if you bring in a new quarterback and not really have Daniel Jones to worry about with his injuries, because that is a serious problem if your quarterback just keeps getting injured. regardless of the O-line. I know the O-line hasn't been great, but it's still, some of it does have to do with Daniel Jones, and sometimes he doesn't make the best of decisions. He has fumbled before, so that's also something that he has to fix up. It's not just the offensive line. And just lastly, to wrap it all up, it seems like when you look at Brian Daboll, his demeanor on the sideline, his sort of character that he gives off, if you've seen him in interviews or just talking to other people, how he coaches his players, it seems like he's very determined on having everything go the right way. Everything's supposed to be like this. It's supposed to fit like this, be organized, and he just likes to have it all laid out. And by having it all laid out, it gives the team the best chance to win, in his opinion. That's how it seems from the outside looking in. When something doesn't go their way, when they mess up their own play, or it gets called on a false start, or a delayed game, or just a bad penalty on their end of the game, he almost loses it, because everything that they've planned, it's not organized, it looks sloppy. The way that he is in that way makes me think that play calling just has to be something he has to do, because giving those responsibilities off to somebody else, yeah, they could execute it as close as possible to your thinking, but it's not really the same. It doesn't translate the same coming out of your mouth to the quarterback as it does when somebody else is calling it. I think having that direct conversation with Daniel Jones, with the rest of the offense, to make sure everybody knows what they're supposed to do, where they're supposed to line up, what the snap count is, and everything like that. It might not change them from, I don't even know their record, last year to a now 8-win, 9-win team, 10-win team, but it might look a little bit cleaner. It might look better, even if they don't win, because you obviously need a lot of talent to compete with all these quarterbacks. It might look better for him to extend his leave there with the Giants, which could just give him a bit of an avenue, a bit more wiggle room to try and convince everyone that they're building something. Because if it goes bad this season, again, like I mentioned, he's going to be gone most likely. Either him or Joe Shane are going to be gone if it looks bad again. So rather than have that, take the chance, take over the play calling duties, and see what happens. You never know. If you want to draft a quarterback, I'm not opposed to it because they sit at 6. If you get one at 6, I think you might as well go and try and get one. Even if he doesn't play right away, it's worth a shot to bring more excitement. But I think now is as good a chance as ever for Daboll and the Giants to take a chance with whatever they feel is the right choice to go with in this draft or in this offseason. It could save their jobs, and it could just keep them in New York a little bit longer. So that's where I stand on it. I'd love to know what you guys think on that, and if you're for or against Brian Daboll calling plays, especially if you're a Giants fan too, out there listening, let me know. But anyway, I will move on from this topic. There's a lot more to come on today's episode of the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast from the UNC Washington Pro Days that I'm going to react to. And I'm going to talk about how Michael Penix did and how Drake May both impressed yesterday. So that's coming up after the break. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.